Imagine getting this close to a tiger. Not seeing one from a distance, not from the safety of a safari vehicle. Actually sitting next to one, touching one, feeding one, or maybe even bottle feeding a tiger cub. And in Thailand, you can do all of this pretty easily. There are places where you can simply walk in, choose the kind of interaction you want, pay for it, and walk away with a photograph like this. But there is another side to these photographs that we rarely get to see. Just think about it. A tiger doesn't naturally allow hundreds of strangers to touch it, feed it, pose for photographs with it. So, what has to really happen to a tiger for this photograph to become possible? Where do these tigers come from? How are they made compliant enough for these interactions? And what happens to them when they are no longer useful for tourist interactions? Photos like these probably take 10 seconds to capture, but the tiger pays for it every single day of its life. If you think getting next to a 400-pound apex predator requires going off the grid, you are wrong. In places like Chiang Mai or Phuket in Thailand, this is surprisingly easy. And when you walk in one of these facilities, it doesn't feel like a wildlife center. It feels like a fast food chain. There's an actual menu. You can actually pick the size of the tiger. Want to start small? There's an option to choose the smallest tiger. Maybe you're feeling brave. Go for the big tiger. Still not enough? There's the giant tiger. Can't decide? Well, they've got you covered. They've got combination packages as well. Buy a combo package and get to take photos with multiple tigers. You pay your fee, step inside, get the shot, and walk out. And people come to these facilities every day to do exactly this. A multi-million-dollar industry built on the back of tigers. But to keep a machine like this running 365 days a year requires a constant supply of tigers. Tigers of different ages, different sizes, and that's where things start getting uncomfortable. The first thing that comes to my mind is, why do these tigers seem so compliant? Now, the fact that humans can train a tiger to follow instructions isn't particularly surprising. Tigers, lions, and other big cats have been performing in circuses for decades, jumping through hoops, standing on platforms, responding to commands. So, yes, a tiger, I guess, can be trained to some extent. But there's a difference. In a circus, a tiger usually interacts primarily with its handlers. In these facilities in Thailand, the end goal is not to get a tiger to perform a particular trick for its handlers. It's to allow complete strangers to walk up to the animal, touch it, feed it, and pose next to it. Now, several investigations into Thailand's tiger tourism industry have documented practices that help us understand how this becomes possible. Think of it as a 3-step process. Step 1: separate them early. For a wild tiger cub, its mother is essentially its entire world. It depends on her for food, protection, and over time learns the behaviors it needs to survive in the wild. And the same goes for its siblings. Tiger cubs grow up playing, chasing, and sparring with each other, developing behaviors they will eventually need as adults. In the wild, this relationship between a cub, its mother, and its siblings can last for up to 2 years, until the young tigers eventually are ready to become independent. But in some of these tiger tourism facilities in Thailand, cubs have been documented being separated from their mothers when they were just 2 to 3 weeks old. Just think about that difference. 2 years in the wild, 2 or 3 weeks here. Step 2: make human contact normal. Once the cub has been separated from its mother, it is hand raised by humans. Humans feed it, humans handle it. And very quickly, the tourists also become a part of its life. Cubs just a few weeks old have been documented being bottle fed and handled by visitors. And let me be clear, we are not just talking about an occasional interaction. Some of these cubs are handled by tourists hundreds of times in a single day. A study done on these venues in Thailand found 5 tiger venues offering cub feeding experiences using cubs that had been removed from their mothers, apparently permanently in most cases. Think about what that means for an animal this young. picked up, bottle fed, touched, photographed, put down, and then the next person arrives, and the next, day after day. By the time the tiger grows up, humans aren't some unfamiliar presence that has suddenly entered its world. Close contact with humans have been a part of their lives since they were probably a few weeks old. Step 3, make them comply. Now, human contact may have become normal for these tigers, but there's still one problem. It's still a tiger. And sometimes a tiger is going to behave like one. It may growl, it may become aggressive, it may refuse to sit when someone wants it to sit. It may simply turn its head in the wrong direction when someone is trying to take a photograph. And this is where habituation alone isn't always enough. There is documented evidence of these tigers being punished using pain and fear to stop aggressive or unwanted behavior. At one of such facilities, a staff member told investigators that food was restricted as punishment when a tiger made what they called a mistake. At Sriracha Tiger Zoo, investigators documented handlers using bamboo sticks to control adult tigers and position their faces in the right direction for photographs. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying that this goes on in every single facility in Thailand. I don't have evidence for that. What we do have is documented evidence that coercion and physical restraint have been used within this industry to control tiger behavior. In a nutshell, it's a systematic way of breaking down much of what makes a tiger a tiger. At the end of it, you may have an animal that will sit quietly while strangers touch it, feed it, and pose for photographs. But that compliance comes at a tremendous cost to the animal. Its choices have been taken away. Many of its natural behaviors are now restricted. It is stressed, it is frustrated, and it is bored. Now, when you go to one of these facilities, you take a picture with the tiger and you get to leave. But the tiger doesn't. In 2019, a group of researchers anonymously visited 34 tiger facilities across Thailand. They observed 799 tigers and essentially created a welfare report card for each facility, looking at things like nutrition, health, physical environment, behavior of animals. And what they found was quite revealing. 62% of these facilities had what the researchers classified as small living spaces, typically simple cages with no access to an outdoor enclosure. In many cases, these spaces were just 4 by 4 meters. Now, let me just put that amount of space into perspective. See, a wild tiger's territory can span tens of square kilometers, depending on the habitat, depending on the sex of the animal, and the availability of prey in that particular habitat. Even in prey rich habitats, a female tiger's territory can be around 10 square kilometers or more, with males generally ranging over considerably larger areas. Tens and hundreds of square kilometers versus a 4 by 4 meter cage. And that kind of confinement has severe consequences. If you've spent any time around captive animals, you've probably seen this. The animal walks the same route, turns around, walks it again, and again, and again. Repetitive behaviors like pacing is one of the signs that suggests that an animal may be struggling to cope with its environment. And in the same 2019 assessment, abnormal repetitive behaviors were observed at 31 of the 34 facilities. So, when someone spends a few minutes sitting beside a tiger and walks away thinking, it looked perfectly happy to me, there's a fairly obvious problem with that conclusion. You only saw the tiger for a few minutes. You didn't see the life that the tiger lives after you leave. Now, to keep this business running year after year, you need tigers. So these facilities don't just keep tigers, they breed them. And there is an obvious commercial reason for that. Cubs are particularly valuable to the tourism industry. Tourists can hold them, bottle feed them, pose for photographs with them. But the problem is, cubs don't stay cubs for long. So if you want to keep offering those experiences year after year, you need more cubs. and that means more breeding. In fact, when World Animal Protection surveyed Thailand's major tiger entertainment venues in 2010, they counted 623 tigers. 5 years later, there were 830. That's a 33% increase in just 5 years. And remember those cubs we talked about earlier being separated from their mothers at just 2 or 3 weeks old? There is a breeding incentive for doing that too. See, removing the cubs early allows the mother to stop nursing and potentially become available for breeding again much sooner. And if we zoom out beyond just the entertainment venues, the scale of Thailand's captive tiger population becomes even more striking. In 2020, it was estimated that around 1960 tigers were being held in captivity across 51 facilities in Thailand. 1960 captive tigers. At the same time, Thailand's wild tiger population was estimated at around 160. That's roughly 12 captive tigers for every tiger in the wild. And here's the important distinction: breeding tigers is not necessarily tiger conservation. Many of these tigers are being bred as part of a commercial captive industry, not as part of programs designed to restore tiger populations in the wild. In tiger tourism, almost every stage of the animal's life can become a product. But there's a problem with continuously breeding more tigers. Tigers live for a long time, in captivity longer, 16 to 18 years on an average. They need to be fed, they need space, they need medical care, and all of that costs money year after year. So, what happens when you keep producing more tigers than you actually need? And what happens when a tiger doesn't have entertainment value anymore? That is where the story takes a much darker turn. A living tiger has commercial value in these facilities. But here's the disturbing part: tigers remain valuable even after they're dead. Their skins are traded, their teeth and claws are sold, and their bones are used in traditional medicines and products like the tiger bone wine. So there's an industry built around living tigers, and another illegal industry built around dead ones. And one case showed just how uncomfortably close these two worlds could get. One of Thailand's most famous tiger tourist attractions was also implicated in the illegal tiger trade. For years, the Tiger Temple in Kanchanburi offered exactly the kind of experiences we've been talking about. At its peak, the attraction was estimated to be bringing in around $3 million a year. But behind the tourist attraction, tigers started disappearing. In late 2014, three adult male tigers vanished. And it didn't stop there. Former workers and volunteers reported other cubs and adult tigers disappearing. Then in 2016, Thai authorities finally moved in. More than 500 officials were involved in the operation to remove the tigers from the temple. And during that raid, they opened an industrial freezer. Inside were the frozen bodies of 40 tiger cubs, all between just 1 and 7 days old. Elsewhere, they found another 20 tiger cubs preserved in jars, tiger skins, tiger teeth, and around 1500 amulets containing pieces of tiger skin. Now, Tiger Temple was for sure an extreme case. What happened there does not mean that every tiger tourism facility in Thailand is involved in trafficking, but it proved something important. Tiger tourism and the illegal tiger trade are not necessarily two completely separate worlds. So, no, we cannot look at a tiger tourist facility today and know where that particular animal will eventually end up. But we do know that captive tigers have entered the illegal wildlife trade. There is documented evidence for it. And that means the tiger tourism industry cannot simply be looked at in isolation from it. So, after all of this, there's one more question that we need to address. Is any of this actually safe for us? Now, obviously, these tigers are accustomed to being around people. But being accustomed to humans doesn't make a tiger safe. You are still dealing with an animal that can weigh up to 200 kilograms. in some cases more, and is built to bring down prey much larger than us. It still has its teeth, its claws, its strength, and its ability to react like a tiger. I'll give you another perspective. See, even with domesticated animals, the risk never disappears completely. If you've grown up around dogs, you probably know what I'm talking about. Sure, you can have an incredibly deep relationship with your dog, but a frightened, stressed, or threatened dog can still bite, and so can a tiger. The difference is that when a tiger reacts while you are leaning over it for a photograph, the consequences can be far more serious. And there have been several documented cases of captive tigers attacking and sometimes killing the very people who cared for them. Thailand itself has had its fair share of incidents. In one recent case, a 5-year-old Indian girl was scratched by a tiger during a tourist interaction in Pattaya. The scratch later developed into severe sepsis. And here's the important thing: a tiger doesn't even have to be trying to kill you to seriously hurt you. Something as simple as a swat from a tiger could cause devastating injuries to a human. And take this from someone who has seen tigers quite a bit. I have seen what they can do to animals much larger and stronger than us. I would never deliberately put myself within touching distance of a tiger. And while researching for this video, I found something else that says a lot about how safe these interactions really are. In a 2019 assessment of tiger facilities across Thailand, researchers found declawed tigers at almost a third of the facilities they visited. And according to them, the tigers were declawed for safety during human interactions. And just to be clear, declawing doesn't simply mean trimming the claws. It involves amputating the end of tiger's toes. Just think about the contradiction here. If you have to remove part of an animal's toes to make interacting with it safer, perhaps the problem isn't the claws. Perhaps we are simply too close to the tiger. When you take a step back and look at this entire system, the early separation, the physical modification, the risks to human safety, you realize how much engineering goes into a single 10-second photograph, which leaves several questions in my mind. Why do we need this? What are we actually trying to gain? And what is the tiger forced to give up for it? Why do we crave this kind of closeness? Why isn't it just enough to simply share a space with a wild animal from a respectful distance? Why do we want to touch it, feed it, and walk away with evidence that we stood right next to a giant predator? Maybe we believe that these photos bring us closer to nature, but in reality, they do the exact opposite. They take a wild animal and strip away everything that makes it wild, just to give us a few seconds of artificial intimacy. I have photographed tigers quite a bit. I've had encounters that I will probably remember for the rest of my life. But those tigers did not owe me anything. They did not have to come closer. They didn't have to look at my camera. They could leave. And very often they did. And that's the difference. Perhaps the privilege is simply knowing that there are still places in this world where a tiger can choose where it goes, what it does, and decide whether we get to see it or not. If you found this video meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel. I am Shantanu and I will see you in the next one.